And away we go, episode 1344 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Wednesday, June 10th, 2026. And guess who has given us another Instagram video? Yes, you guessed it. San Francisco 49ers receiver Brandon Aiyuk, the man who more than anything in life wants to be on the Washington Commanders. Off his series of Instagram posts over this past Saturday and Sunday, we got this on Tuesday night.
And another thing, you want to know why they really mad though? They mad because they stupid. They dumb. They mad that they pay me $50 million in 8 months. And they avoided my guarantees for 2027. And I'm about to be on a new team in 2027. They mad at they selves for real. Niggas acting like they mad at me, but they stupid ass mad at they self.
There you go. Another shot from Brandon Aiyuk at the Niners. Although I'm guessing that the Niners actually agree with him on what he said there. They are mad at themselves for having paid him. There's also this. Brandon Aiyuk in that video did seem to get his facts wrong. He said that the Niners voided guaranteed money for the 2027 season. The Niners voided money for the 2026 season. Also, he said that he'll be on a new team in 2027. Brandon, you're going to be on a new team in 2026, possibly / likely our team, the Washington Commanders. Does he not realize all of this? Was that maybe just a simple mistake, saying 2027 when he meant 2026? Who knows? But the saga goes on. More in moments. Hello and welcome to this Wednesday installment of the Al Galdi podcast, in which we talk Washington Commanders on every episode, no matter the time of year. And our next segment have in-depth conversation for you on our team. Off it on Tuesday, having an OTA day that was open to the media. We next segment are going to discuss Washington's defense off comments from defensive coordinator Daronte Jones and head coach Dan Quinn during pre-practice press conferences on Tuesday morning, and off comments from linebacker Frankie Luvu during a post-practice press conference on Tuesday afternoon. Lots of good stuff from all of these guys, including Jones on his defensive principles, the installation of his defense, and linebacker Sonny Styles, Luvu on his down 2025 season, and Quinn on where leadership on the defense is coming from, with linebacker Bobby Wagner being gone. And also on the show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats, they now are 8-2-1 over their last 11 series, a 6-3 win at the San Francisco Giants late night on Tuesday night, as the Nats have won the first 2 games of this 3-game series. The O's lost their 4th consecutive game, a 6-5 10-inning loss to the Seattle Mariners at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Tuesday evening, in a game in which the O's overcame a 4-2 9th-inning deficit. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. And in our quest for 2,000 ratings of the podcast, if you want Apple Podcasts, give the podcast a 5-star rating. On the podcast, we'll read whatever you write in writing a review of the podcast, but the review can include you saying something about sports. You don't just have to write about the podcast. From Madavis5050 on Apple Podcasts, writes Madavis, living outside D.C. now. This helps keep me dialed in. Thank you very much for that, Madavis. Yep, the majority of our listeners do live in the Washington, D.C. area, but we do have a lot of listeners who live outside of the D.C. area, and that brings me to this email. Email from Carlos from Pod Status. Subject: the Al Galdi podcast is ranking very well in Afghanistan. Writes Carlos. Hello. How's it going? Hope all is well. I have some cool information that might interest you. Your podcast, the Al Galdi podcast, has good performance in Apple Podcast rankings, parentheses, last 30 days. Position 1 in the category of football in Afghanistan. Position 3 in the category of football in Taiwan. Position 3 in the category of sports in Afghanistan. This data is provided by podstatus.com. Happy podcasting. Thank you for the email, Carlos, who may or may not be AI. But how about that? The number 1 football podcast in Afghanistan, at least according to our pal Carlos. You know, I hear that the leaders of the Taliban are big Washington Commanders fans, although they are split on whether the team should acquire Brandon Aiyuk. And speaking of our friend San Francisco 49ers receiver Brandon Aiyuk and whether Washington should want him, from Troy Carl on X, writes Troy, "Hi Al, not sure Aiyuk is worth the trouble. He was really good 2 seasons ago, but I ask everyone this question. When was the last time that an elite athlete had 2 years off and came back as good? Anything is possible, but I don't see this one working out. Thank you for that, Troy. I worry about that, too. How often in the NFL, when you talk about a player trying to get back to the high level that he was at a few seasons ago, does the player actually get back to that high level of a few seasons ago? And the answer is rarely. Now, the hope with Brandon Ayuk is that he's young enough to where this isn't like hoping that a guy in his 30s gets back to where he was at in his 20s. The 2026 season would be just his age 28 season, but he has not played in an NFL game since suffering a torn ACL and torn MCL in his right knee in October 2024. We have no idea where he's at as a player. He doesn't truly know where he's at as a player. His 2023 season was really good, but 2023 was 3 years ago. 3 years is a long time in the NFL. By the way, Dan Quinn, during his pre-practice press conference on Tuesday morning, did get asked about the Brandon Ayuk situation. Didn't say anything, but we had this back and forth between Barry Zverluga of The Athletic and Quinn.
There's a prominent player on another team who's wearing Washington Commanders gear and social media and played with your quarterback in college. I wonder what you make of that situation and whether you think there will be a resolution.
Yeah, not for my, understanding or have a comment about that.
Fair enough.
You had to take a shot, I understand.
Yeah, no, I did, yeah.
It's very fair. I'm sure.
Yeah, Dan Quinn right there saying exactly what he had to say, given that Brandon Ayuk is under contract to another team in the Niners. Washington running back Rachaad White, he did a post-practice press conference on Tuesday afternoon, and he got asked about Brandon Ayuk. White played for Arizona State for the 2020 and 2021 seasons. Ayuk played for Arizona State for the 2018 and 2019 seasons. Washington quarterback Jaden Daniels played for Arizona State for the 2019 through 2021 seasons. We on Tuesday afternoon had this exchange between ABC 7 sports director Scott Abraham and White, and then we'll fast forward to an exchange between Mitch Tischler of Monumental Sports Network and White.
Got to ask you about Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, there's a lot of speculation of Brandon maybe coming here to Washington. He's posting videos. Your college teammates with him. Selfishly, how badly do you want him to kind of come here so you can get it all back together, Arizona State together again?
Yeah, I mean, can't really get too much into it because, it's you don't know what you don't know, but we'll just see what happens.
I know there's not much you can say about Brandon Ayuk with whatever's happening, but you know him a little bit. You've seen him play. What does he bring to the team?
His resume speaks for itself. He ain't played in a couple years, but, he's still BA, an all-pro guy, things like that. So, know he a competitor and things like that. So, wish nothing but the best. And like I said, I can't really speak on much after that. Thanks, appreciate it.
Boy, our friends Scott Abraham and Mitch Tischler trying to get Rachaad White in trouble for tampering. Brandon Ayuk is under contract to another team in the Niners. Rachaad White actually did not play with Brandon Ayuk at Arizona State. As mentioned, Ayuk played for Arizona State for the 2018 and 2019 seasons. White played for Arizona State for the 2020 and 2021 seasons. Hey, if you would like to grow your business or practice, consider advertising on this podcast, which just recently was the number 56 podcast in this country on Apple Podcasts in the U.S. football category, and apparently is dominating in Afghanistan. But podcast advertising works and is very affordable. Put the power of the pod to work for you. Get your message out there to thousands of successful people in the Washington, D.C. area. We'd love to have you on board. Email us to see what we can do for you. The email address is thealgaldipodcast@yahoo.com. Week 3 of 2026 Washington Commanders OTAs is underway. OTAs are organized team activities. No live contact is permitted, but 7-on-7, 9-on-7, and 11-on-11 drills are permitted. The team this week is conducting the third of three-day sessions of OTAs this offseason, May 27th through the 29th. June 2nd through the 4th, and June 9th through the 11th. And the team is conducting a 3-day mandatory minicamp from June 16th through the 18th. And then after that is the break until training camp. Washington has had the first day of each 3-day batch of OTAs this offseason open to the media. So the first OTA day of this offseason, Wednesday, May 27th, was open to reporters. The OTA day on Tuesday, June 2nd, was open to reporters. And the OTA day on Tuesday, June 9th, was open to reporters. Head coach Dan Quinn and defensive coordinator Daronte Jones each did a pre-practice press conference on Tuesday morning, and a bunch of players did post-practice press conferences on Tuesday afternoon. A lot was said. We'll be going over the best of what was said over the next few shows. The receiver Terry McLaurin, he did not participate in Tuesday's OTA practice. He was watching team drills from a sideline. Running back Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, he during Tuesday's OTA practice was working on a side field as opposed to being a full participant in the practice. This also was the case for the two previous Washington OTA days that were open to the media this offseason. He clearly is dealing with something, but NFL teams are not required to put out injury reports for OTAs, nor are teams required to report who does and does not show up for OTAs, as they are voluntary. And speaking of that, left tackle Laramie Tunsil, as best as we can tell, was not in attendance for Tuesday's OTA practice. Day one of 2026 Washington Commanders OTAs did include Tunsil surprisingly being in attendance. The expectation was that he would not be in attendance. He traditionally does his own thing in off seasons, but he on May 27th was in attendance. However, he, for these last two Washington OTA practices open to the media, as best as we can tell, has not been in attendance. Was good to hear from Daronte Jones on Tuesday morning. Is he the person who will get Washington back to being consistently good on defense? We have been waiting for that person for years. The greatest defensive coach in Washington Commanders franchise history is Richie Pettibone, who ran Redskins defenses over the 1981 through 1992 seasons. He was the Skins defensive secondary coach for the 1978 through 1980 seasons. He was the Skins defensive coordinator for the 1981 and 1982 seasons. He was the Skins assistant head coach / defense for the 1983 through 1992 seasons, and then he was the Skins head coach for the 1993 season. But he is the greatest defensive coach in franchise history with what he did in running Skins defenses over the 1981 through 1992 seasons. What is amazing, but also is true, is that just one person who has run Washington's defense since then has truly done well. That person is Greg Williams. Greg Williams was the Skins assistant head coach / defense for the 2004 through 2007 seasons. Technically was not the Skins defensive coordinator. Greg Blosh was, but those were Greg Williams' defenses. The Skins had great defenses in 3 of Williams' 4 seasons with the team. The Skins regular season rankings in total defense per DVOA with Greg Williams as assistant head coach / defense. 2004, number 4, 2005, number 4, 2006, number 32, but 2007, number 7. Not since Greg Williams has Washington had anything close to consistently good defense. Your Washington defensive coordinator starting with Greg Williams' time with the Skins. Greg Blosh for the 2004 through 2009 seasons. He was the Skins defensive coordinator and defensive line coach for the 2004 through 2007 seasons, and was the Skins defensive coordinator for the 2008 and 2009 seasons. Jim Haslett was the Skins defensive coordinator for the 2010 through 2014 seasons. Joe Barry was the Skins defensive coordinator for the 2015 and 2016 seasons. Greg Manusky was the Skins defensive coordinator for the 2017 through 2019 seasons. Jack Del Rio was Washington's defensive coordinator from January 2020 to November 2023. And Joe Witt Jr. was the Commanders defensive coordinator from February 2024 until January 2026, although he this past November was demoted, though his official title did not change. And so now we have Daronte Jones as Washington Commanders defensive coordinator. The team on January 30th announced having hired Jones as defensive coordinator. There is a lot to like about Daronte Jones. The two biggest things: number one, he has an impressive recent history in terms of his defenses. Number two, he has coached under a number of high-level defensive coaches. So regarding Daronte Jones' impressive recent history in in terms of his defenses. He came to Washington off having spent 5 of the previous 6 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings. He was the Vikings defensive backs coach for the 2020 and 2022 seasons and was the Vikings defensive passing game coordinator / defensive backs coach for the 2023 through 2025 seasons. The Vikings, for each of Jones' 3 regular seasons as defensive passing game coordinator / defensive backs coach, were top 11 in the NFL in total defense per DVOA, including top 3 for each of the last 2 regular seasons. 2023, number 11, 2024, number 2, 2025, number 3. And then with Daronte Jones having coached under a number of high-level defensive coaches. Jones as Vikings defensive passing game coordinator / defensive backs coach for the 2023 through 2025 seasons, coached under Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores. Jones as Vikings defensive backs coach for the 2020 season, coached under then Vikings head coach Mike Zimmer. Jones as Cincinnati Bengals secondary / quarterbacks coach for the 2018 and 2019 seasons, coached under Marvin Lewis, whose final season as Bengals head coach was the 2018 season. Jones as Miami Dolphins assistant defensive backs coach for the 2016 and 2017 seasons, coached under Vance Joseph, who was the Dolphins defensive coordinator for the 2016 season. So Jones has worked under Brian Flores, Mike Zimmer, Marvin Lewis, and Vance Joseph. Some terrific defensive coaches. Additionally, Daronte Jones is a local. He's from Capitol Heights, Maryland, went to Bishop McNamara High School in Forestville, Maryland, and then went to Morgan State University in Baltimore. So there is a lot to like about Daronte Jones, but there was a lot to like about Joe Witt when Washington hired him as defensive coordinator, and he did not quite work out as Washington defensive coordinator. We on Tuesday morning had this exchange between ABC 7 sports director Scott Abraham and Daronte Jones.
What about for you? Obviously, this is a new role for you, defensive coordinator.
Yes.
What are some of the challenges you've kind of gone through over the last couple of months as you get used to this role?
Challenges, I would say, Coach Q, Dan Quinn has been very supportive with resources. I've been using him as a resource. So the challenge really with him and the staff that they've been giving has been more of a collaborative atmosphere. And so I wouldn't say a challenge. I think the experience has been great because you're constantly learning. And in this profession, that's what we want to do. So it's very similar to experience in the past. But challenges is just more so getting us online. When you talk about making sure you have 11 on the field, making sure the guys are lining up right with the right fronts, getting the calls, getting the communication across defensively. So everything matters. So before we even run a play, it's the things that's leading up to that play. Elite communication, guys looking at the situation. So all that kind of, dials in to before we run like a cover 2, what is our fundamentals, what our techniques look like, the communication pre-snap and post-snap. And so that's all part of it. So I wouldn't say it's challenging. It's just you're looking at a wider spectrum of things.
Washington's defense has been bad in each of the last 3 seasons, 2023 through 2025. The last good Washington defense was the 2022 defense. So much has happened with Washington's roster in terms of defensive players this offseason. You look at what Washington has done on defense in free agency so far this offseason. We have the following unrestricted free agent acquisitions: interior defensive lineman Tim Settle and DJ Davidson. Edge defenders Adafe Owe, Calebon Chason, and Charles Omenihu. Linebacker Leo Chanel. Cornerbacks Amik Robertson and DeKello Witherspoon. And safety Nick Cross. We have the following re-signings of pending unrestricted free agents / actual unrestricted free agents. Interior defensive lineman Shai Tuttle. Edge defenders Dietrich Wise Jr. and Drake Jackson. And cornerback Antonio Hamilton Sr. We have the contract extension for safety Jeremy Reeves. We have the following unrestricted free agent defections: edge defender Jacob Martin and cornerbacks Jonathan Jones and Noah Igbenogany. And we have the team having released cornerback Marshawn Lattimore. And we have the team in the 2026 NFL Draft having taken Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles with the number 7 overall pick and having taken Tennessee edge defender Joshua Josephs in the 5th round. General Manager Adam Peters and head coach Dan Quinn this offseason have done quite a bit to address the defense. Has the defense been fixed? We can only hope. We on Tuesday morning had this exchange between Scott Abraham and Daronte Jones.
A big storyline is Daronte going into kind of the new addition to this defense is younger and faster. That's kind of the narrative we've been talking about. What do you see? Kind of explain the younger and faster that you've seen on the field.
Well, obviously you see guys flying around, and that's just the effort. Coach Q does a great job of the culture that he's built here, but the effort and guys playing lights out and just giving all they got for their teammate, you can see that the brotherhood has been established there and guys playing for one another. And so the younger and faster, I would honestly say, because of the culture that is here, even if you were older, you'll still be giving all you got. It may not be as fast, and do we have some older guys, but I like the mindset of you can see the speed on the field.
And Washington's defense so needed an infusion of speed, right? One of the really exciting things to think about with this defense under Daronte Jones is the possibility, if not likelihood, of this being a Brian Flores-style defense. Brian Flores is maybe the best defensive coordinator in the NFL, and Jones was Flores' right-hand man with the Vikings. A fantasy football expert and Minnesota Vikings media personality Paul Charchian, he on episode 1248 of this podcast, gave us a deep dive on Jones in terms of his time with the Vikings and flat out said that Jones would have succeeded Flores as Vikings defensive coordinator had Flores left the Vikings this offseason. This was Daronte Jones on Tuesday morning on if his Washington defense will be a Brian Flores-style defense.
Definitely excited about the opportunity. And again, I want to just continue to thank Josh Harris and the organization and Dan Quinn and Adam Peters for giving me the opportunity. But in terms of B. Flo has definitely been very instrumental in my background, along with many others. And so you're talking about a Marvin Lewis, Mike Zimmer, Vance Joseph, Dave Aranda. Those guys have been very instrumental. So I like to think you're pulling from a little bit of everyone, and just your experiences, as we all have done in our past with anything. You take multiple classes in college, you're going to pull from all types of classes. You know what I mean? So yes.
Maybe the number one trait of a Brian Flores-style defense is its attacking nature. The Vikings for the 2025 regular season per Sport Radar were number one in the NFL in blitz percentage by miles, 44.3. Number two was the Atlanta Falcons at 33.4. We on Tuesday morning had this exchange between Commanders insider Nikki Javala of The Athletic and Daronte Jones, and then they'll hear a follow-up exchange.
We've heard a lot of players say that this attacking defense, I know you said that too. What does that mean to you?
Honestly, it's about playing with fundamentals and techniques. I'm going to be honest with that. That's what it's about. I mean, defeating blocks, tackling, keeping the chunks off the tape, elite communication, all that goes into play. So, to say we're an attacking, I wouldn't just quite say we're an attack. But to say we're an attacking style defense, every defense is attacking. No defense wants to sit back and just catch, right? So that's what I'm talking about in terms of attacking. It's just playing with great fundamentals and techniques. Guys playing with a certain level of physicality. It's all that we're looking for. That's all.
You make that sound so simple.
So my players often joke with me a little bit. I like to say football is a simple game complicated by man, and we make it more difficult than what it has to be.
Yeah, I appreciated those answers from Daronte Jones. I thought that those were good, honest answers. He brought up wanting the defense to play, quote, with great fundamentals and techniques, end quote. Falling under all of that is tackling, and Washington last season was terrible at tackling. Washington for the 2025 regular season per Sport Radar was number 31 out of 32 NFL teams in fewest missed tackles, 131. Only the Cincinnati Bengals were worse, 170. This was Daronte Jones on Tuesday morning on what he has been emphasizing during these OTA practices.
Well, everything we're starting from is really the foundation of fundamentals and techniques, and we're continuing to preach that as a staff. This game comes down to eventually defeating blocks and tackling, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what you call. You got to get off a block, you got to make a tackle, and so our guys understanding the fundamentals of that, the techniques that go with that, is what we've been focusing on, along with great effort. But we've also been preaching getting to know your teammates. The brotherhood is huge, knowing who's next to you and playing for that guy as well. So that's been our focus so far from a foundation piece.
So there you go, Daronte Jones mentioning an emphasis on tackling. A big thing with Jones's defense is guys being multiple. That word has come up a lot, multiple. This was Daronte Jones on Tuesday morning on where and how he is seeing versatility and adaptability during these OTA practices.
Well, with the multiple personnel groupings we've been having, it's the guys that really attack the conceptual learning that we're asking of them. And, when you're memorizing certain things or you're just trying to memorize what you have, you don't really understand the big picture. And so having the different personnel groupings where, you could be in a spot and he could be in that same spot the next play, and you guys are both being asked to do the same thing, it helps the versatility aspect. And so guys are just learning this thing as, hey, we're just X's on the field. Let's just learn football, not so much what I have, but let me just learn football, because at the end of the day, this is our craft. And no difference than someone's trying to get a PhD or their master's. They're trying to extend their knowledge on their particular craft, and that's all we're doing. We're just trying to broaden our guys' horizons. When you see the game differently, you start to see things differently. So we wanted to make sure they're embracing that conceptual learning.
Much more on Washington's defense in moments, but if you have a case, contact Chris Nace. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. It will fight for you and win for you. Lead attorney Chris Nace is a big Washington Commanders fan and big supporter of this podcast, and his firm wins trials. So just recently, an $8 million jury verdict in Baltimore City Circuit Court. If you have a case, contact the Nace Law Group. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com, and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group is tremendous. It is a Washington, D.C.-based family law firm that handles medical malpractice, personal injury, birth injury, legal malpractice, and consumer protection cases, offering aggressive advocacy for victims in Washington, D.C. and West Virginia. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. So this idea of Washington defensive players being multiple does play into the reality of defense in the NFL becoming increasingly positionless. We in the modern NFL are seeing cornerbacks play safety, safeties play cornerback, linebackers play safety, safeties play linebacker, linebackers play edge defenders play interior defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen play edge defender, etc. A defensive player's listed position is not literally the position that he always plays. We on Tuesday morning had this exchange between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Daronte Jones.
What's the challenge? You have a new scheme that you're installing for guys here, but you also have guys maybe in different roles than they've been before too. Frankie's been allowed down on the outside, maybe looking at. So what does that do to the challenge of installing something new?
Well, I will say I take my hat off to not just Frankie, but all the players that have been open to learning different things. And you know how it is sometimes when you're something new, there can be some resistance. And so when I'm talking about how the guys are attacking the intentionality of what we're asking, that's part of it. And what we're asking is coming in with an open mind, being open to some things and being comfortable being uncomfortable. And so to ask those questions with Sonny or Frankie or whoever else, that's just embracing the big picture and the big scheme of things. And you never know what may be asked of you. You never know who may make the play. But if you're willing enough to learn, not just football, but it's in life. How can we become better men, better husbands, better fathers? We're constantly growing. And so using that same mindset into football is all we're asking guys to do, and guys have been doing a great job at that.
And coming up in that exchange was linebacker Frankie Luvu playing some edge defender. Frankie Luvu, big-time wild card for Washington this coming season. Do we this coming season see 2024 Frankie Luvu or 2025 Frankie Luvu? And yes, there has been talk of him potentially being the odd man out at linebacker and not even being on the team. But Luvu is coming off a down season, right? Washington in March 2024 signed Luvu as an unrestricted free agent. He had a terrific 2024 season. He, for the 2024 regular season, made the Associated Press's All-Pro second team. But he in the 2025 regular season struggled. Overall grade per Pro Football Focus of just 53.7. That's bad. 60 is average. And a lot of missed tackles. We just talked about missed tackles a few minutes ago. Frankie Luvu per Sport Radar was tied for number 5 in the NFL in most missed tackles, 18. If you go by PFF, he had 21 missed tackles. The 2026 season will be his age 30 season and the final season of his 3-year contract per overthecap.com and spottrack.com, each of which has his salary cap hit for the 2026 season as being $11.295 million. I very much could see Luvu doing very well in this Daronte Jones' defense as a combo linebacker edge defender, but if he does not take to the defense well, it's not inconceivable that he ends up being traded or even released before the start of the 2026 regular season. Frankie Luvu did a post-practice press conference on Tuesday afternoon. This was Luvu on his early impressions of Daronte Jones' defense, and then you'll hear a follow-up exchange.
Man, very aggressive, very downhill. We're disruptive. Being in the backfield, changing the line of scrimmage, guys in the backfield, and everything else will kind of play off of that, right? As far as our coverages and whatnot, but for the most part, it's like we get the last say at the end of the day, with the pencil. When you're making the checks, everybody all in one, and just playing aggressive at the end of the day.
Something we heard from players on both sides of the field have said that David Blau has catered things towards them, Daronte has catered things towards them, trying to customize.
Yeah.
So what is, without revealing too much, what you can tell us, what is kind of Daronte's vision for you so far?
Man, see right now, just kind of, getting downhill and just playing everything off, right? Like I said, man, it's still early right now. We're still diving into the playbook, but for the most part, it's a lot of downhill, but also giving that look where if I'm showing, I'm getting the whole slide and say Sonny going, you know what I mean, or Sonny showing I'm going, or the nickel going. So it all ties in apart. We're all like a string, you know what I mean. So I definitely enjoy it. I love it, and man, I'm just excited.
Okay, and Frankie Luvu on Tuesday afternoon, to his credit, did address his down 2025 season. We on Tuesday afternoon had this back and forth between Scott Abraham and Luvu.
Frankie, I'm sure over the last couple of months you did some evaluating of your play last year. Going into this year, what are your goals? What do you want to improve on? What did you see on the tape last year that maybe you want to do differently going into this year?
To be honest, man, yes, I did do a lot of, self critical, play on my part, but man, just getting back to playing ball, man. With that being said, just being free and just play within the scheme, you know what I mean, and just making my plays when my plays come to me and not going searching for it, and just doing my job in my 111th. I feel like, I wasn't doing that part of it last year. Just playing freely is what I'm trying to say. So
you thought that was missing last year? Kind of explain that when you.
I won't say it's missing. I just felt like I could be better in some situations where I'm doing too much if I'm not doing too much. So it's a lot of me personal type things. It's never about team or at the end of the day. But for the most part, I just feel like there's little things and critical situational things I got to work on. I'm going to work on my game.
Well, Washington, of course, spent the number 7 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft on a linebacker in Sonny Styles. He, from the moment that Washington took him, has been viewed as a potential, if not likely, green dot guy for the team's defense in the 2026 regular season. He, during these OTA practices this offseason, has been wearing the green dot. The green dot on an NFL helmet signifies the player who is authorized to receive one-way radio communications from the coach staff. Only one offensive player, usually the quarterback, and one defensive player, usually a linebacker or safety, are allowed to wear the green dot on the field during a game at any given time. This was Daronte Jones on Tuesday morning on if there is a learning curve for Sonny Styles as a rookie wearing the green dot.
Not so much as it used to be in the past. For us, pretty much all the linebackers have the green dots because of the communication at practice. But nowadays, if they have that ability to have the green dot in college, you're going to see more and more college athletes coming to this level with comfort level of hearing a call, hearing the communication, and then echoing and getting that out to their teammates. And so because of where he's come from and his experience, it's been smooth as it can be for that.
And Sonny Styles did wear the green dot for Ohio State's defense last season. Washington's green dot guy on defense for the last 2 seasons was linebacker Bobby Wagner, but he remains an unrestricted free agent and certainly seems unlikely to be re-signed by Washington, barring injury to a key linebacker. This was Daronte Jones on Tuesday morning on if he right now knows who he wants to wear the green dot on defense in week 1 of the 2026 regular season. And then you'll hear a follow-up exchange between Scott Abraham and Jones.
No, it's still early in the day, and we're fortunate enough to have this time and training camp to let that play out.
To your point, quick follow-up. How do you go about figuring out that process in terms of who's going to be wearing that green dot? Take me through kind of step-by-step process, what you look for, and kind of figuring out who's going to end up with that green dot.
Well, one, it's based off of the communication, the ability to echo the call out to your teammates, but also it's the personnel groupings, right? It's who's going to be on the field. And so when you're talking about who that green dot can be, well, who's in the most packages? Who has earned that spot to be in the most packages? Because if you're in one package and he's off the field, then you just lost your green dot and you don't have a chance to switch helmets in series. And so as we're getting to know what packages we want to be in, who's in what packages as we continue to build this thing here, that will play out based off of the guys' competition. That's the theme of what we do here is competition. So we have plenty of days to watch this competition play itself out, and then we'll know based off of the end of that who's going to wear the green dot.
Yeah, it sure seems like Sonny Styles is tracking toward being Washington's green dot guy on defense for this coming regular season, but we shall see. Would be something for him to be the defense's green dot guy this coming regular season from 2 standpoints. A, he's a rookie. B, he's still new to linebacker. Styles played college football for 4 seasons, all for Ohio State, 2022 through 2025. He was a safety for the 2022 and 2023 seasons, was a linebacker for the 2024 and 2025 seasons. Now, Styles has been comped to Bobby Wagner. Dafe Owe, he during his post-OTA practice press conference on June 2nd called Styles a baby Bobby Wagner. We on Tuesday morning had this back and forth between Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack and Dan Quinn.
Dan, you mentioned Bobby, since you were there for the beginning of his career, you're there for the beginning of Sonny, some of the players have made some of those comparisons between the two. What do you kind of see? It's fine that you compare the rookie to the guy who's going to go to the Hall of Fame someday, but what do you kind of see and where they were at the beginning of their careers?
I think like with the two of them and a lot of great players, like how much they love football. And it goes into like this dedication to find an edge, to stay early, to go late, like knowing there's sacrifices that other people won't make in the dark hours. And Wags lived that. And Sonny has those same traits of how much he loves it and wants to put in the time and the effort to do that. And so that's one trait that I see a commonality between those two and all great players who like, man, they love it and they are going to like do whatever it takes to get themselves ready to go.
What have you seen from Sonny now that the veterans, he's working with the veterans and getting it organized? Have you seen anything different, or what do you want to see more from him?
I think just in general, like I'm seeing what we'd like, and there's times when it's, man, absolutely go let it rip. Like trust yourself. It's a new system, but they're all new working in it at the same time. So there's certain advantages for this year's rookie class, much like the 24 class. The veterans aren't miles ahead in terms of a scheme. So having all of them work some together, like that's a big deal.
Yeah, this Daronte Jones defense is new to every Washington player, both veterans and rookies. And also regarding Bobby Wagner no longer being on Washington is the leadership void. We on Tuesday morning had this back and forth between Scott Abraham and Dan Quinn.
Dan, with no Bobby Wagner, how have you seen Frankie Luvu maybe become more of a leader, especially in a young linebacking room?
Yeah, and Frankie and Bobby both led in their own unique ways, playing together for the last 2 years. Frankie's somebody like we all respect so much just by like the passion and the love for the game. What we've seen probably more is his communication and ability, play calling of things that, kind of were naturally deferred to Wags. And so, kind of being pushed into those spaces, it's allowed for him to talk and communicate at a higher level, and he certainly answered that.
I'm curious, just an overall leadership question, especially on defense, because Bobby was such a, vocal figure, he had a stranglehold on that defense. Who are you leaning on this year? Like, who do you want to assert themselves to maybe be that leader of the defense?
Yeah, I think at the 3 different locations, what does that look like, and who are they? And as this team chemistry, continues to grow, the voices I'm hearing certainly as Frankie is one. I'm certainly feeling all of Mikey's intent. He's been one of the hardest workers we've had through this offseason. I can imagine many a days here seeing he and JK here early in the mornings going through their process. So those are just a few that I feel like have elevated leading work, all of it, just to take it to a new space. But it's not something that you just hand out. It is something that needs to be, garnered more over time. We knew there was certainly going to be a void with Wags, no shit, DQ, right? But that part, he's one of the most incredible leaders, I've been around. But also, it now allows some space to see what could take place, what could happen, who could elevate. And so I like being aware of that and watching into that. That would take some more time, even as good as Jaden started it. It's more, is he going to be a good mini camp? Okay, let's wait for training camp. And then you go into that spot. So there's been a number of steps up so far, but I would say it's not one singular voice today.
And while we're talking leadership, going to be interesting to see what Dan Quinn does regarding designating captains for the 2026 regular season. Will we still have rotating captains? Quinn, for each of his first 2 regular seasons as Washington head coach, has had a weekly game captain system, basing captains on game-specific matchups and how guys have been playing and how guys have been practicing and how guys have been behind the scenes. I am not the biggest fan of the weekly game captain system of the rotating captains. I would prefer the Quinn name captains for the entire regular season, and if a captain gets injured and is out for a substantial period of time, then you name another captain in the injured captain's place. But Quinn does seem to like the rotating captains. Well, as I am recording this at, let's see, what time is it? 1:49 a.m. Eastern on Wednesday, the Washington Nationals are in a virtual tie for the National League's 3rd of 3 wildcard spots. Yes, the Nats, as we speak, are in a virtual tie for a playoff spot. Your current 2026 MLB regular season standings include these 3 teams in a virtual tie for the National League's 3rd of 3 wildcard spots. The Arizona Diamondbacks at 34-32, the San Diego Padres at 34-32, and the Washington Nationals at 35-33. Not bad for a team in season number 1 of a restarted rebuild. The Nats late night on Tuesday night played a game that was long and tedious and not exactly a work of art. But the Nats late night on Tuesday night won and now are 8-2-1 over their last 11 series. A 6-3 win at the San Francisco Giants late night on Tuesday night in Game 2 of a 3-game series. The game lasted for 3 hours and 17 minutes as the Nats and Giants combined for a staggering 367 pitches, but the Nats won this off the 4-3 win at the Giants late night on Monday night in a game in which the Nats overcame a 3-1 ninth-inning deficit by scoring 3 runs in the top of the ninth. So the Nats have won the series. They now are 4-1 on this 6-game trip out west and now are 35-33 with a run differential of +8, 23-13 on the road versus 12-20 at home. More good offense for the Nats, who are number 1 in MLB in runs scored at 362. The Nats in this 6-3 win at the Giants late night on Tuesday night, 6 runs, 8 hits, which were a home run, 2 triples, a double, and 4 singles, 5 walks. So the Nats did go just 2 for 10 with runners in scoring position and did strike out 11 times, but the Nats so worked Giants pitchers in this game. The Giants used 6 pitchers. They combined to throw a whopping 190 pitches over 9 innings. The top 5 qualified Nats players in terms of OPS for this regular season: number 1, James Wood, 934. Number 2, C.J. Abrams, 897. Number 3, Luis Garcia Jr., 749. Number 4, Dalen Lyle, 732. Number 5, Jacob Young, 689. And 4 of those 5 5 guys had notable offensive performances in this game. James Wood, he is the Nats starting right fielder and number 1 batter, went 3 for 5 with an RBI single and 2 other singles. And he had a stolen base. Wood in the Nats 2-run first had a leadoff full count opposite field single to left field despite having been down in the count at 1.02. Wood in the Nats 1-run fifth had a one-out opposite field, seeing eye RBI single through the left side of the infield for a 3-0 Nats lead. The single had an exit velocity of just 67.9 miles per hour per StatCast. We're so used to Wood registering these mammoth exit velocities. That RBI single, 67.9 miles per hour. Wood's 2 non-RBI singles registered the 2 highest exit velocities of the game per StatCast, each at well over 100 miles per hour. And Wood had to steal a second base in that Nats 1-run fifth. Luis Garcia Jr., he is the Nats starting first baseman and number 2 batter, went 1 for 3 with a 2-run homer. Garcia in the Nats 2-run first had a 2-run homer to right field on a 1-2 pitch for a 2-0 Nats lead. How about the power of Luis Garcia lately? He, for the month of May, had a slugging percentage of .513. He, for this month of June, has a slugging percentage of .667. Daylon Lyle, he is the Nats starting left fielder and number 5 batter, got on base 4 times. He went 1 for 2 with an RBI triple, a bases loaded walk, another walk, and a hit by pitch. Lyle in the Nats 1-run ninth had a 2-out first pitch, RBI triple to deep right center field for a 6-2 Nats lead. And Jacob Young, he is the Nats starting center fielder and number 9 batter, went 2 for 4 with a triple and a single. Young in the Nats 1-run fifth had a 1-out opposite field triple to right center field. The Nats starting pitcher in this 6-3 win at the Giants late night on Tuesday night was Andrew Alvarez. He officially allowed 2 runs in 4 innings, but he's lucky that final line wasn't worse. He put a lot of guys on base. Alvarez gave up 5 hits, which were 2 triples, a double, and 2 singles. He issued 5 walks, recorded 4 strikeouts. He over his mere 4 innings threw 90 pitches, 51 strikes, 39 balls. But the Nats relief pitching in this game was good. 4 Nats relievers officially combined to allow 1 run in 5 innings. Brad Lord officially tossed 2 2/3 scoreless innings, despite giving up a double and 2 singles, despite issuing 2 walks, and despite shortstop C.J. Abrams committing a fielding error. Lord came into the game in the bottom of the 5th, and he, to the second batter he faced, gave up a 1-out full count 2-run double by Jung-Hoo Lee down the right field line to cut the Nats lead to 3-2. The ball did go right by first baseman Luis Garcia Jr. as he made a falling/diving attempt at a catch. Garcia is hitting, but his defense at first, not exactly the greatest. Richard Lovelady faced 1 batter and got 1 out, but it was a big out. He came into the game in the bottom of the 7th with the bases loaded, 2 outs, and the Nats up 5-2, and Lovelady got pinch hitter Buddy Kennedy to line out for the 3rd out. Clayton Beeter tossed a perfect bottom of the 8th on just 11 pitches, and Orlando Revolta allowed 1 run in 1 inning. He, in the bottom of the 9th, gave up a 2-out solo homer by Bryce Eldridge to center field on a 1-2 pitch to cut the Nats lead to 6-3. Game 3 for the Nats at the Giants Wednesday afternoon at 3:45. The Nats have listed Foster Griffin as their probable starting pitcher for the game. If you're a Baltimore Orioles fan, Tuesday evening was frustrating in multiple ways. The O's lost their 4th consecutive game, a 6-5 10-inning loss to the Seattle Mariners at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Tuesday evening in Game 2 of a 4-game series. This was a game in which the O's overcame a 4-2 9th-inning deficit, but they still lost 4 consecutive losses since notching 10 wins in 14 games. And Masson had major technical problems during the game. I read to you from Masson in a post on X on Tuesday night, quote, "We again apologize for the issues with our broadcast feed and are working to resolve the issue as soon as possible," end quote. This was a home game. The weather was fine, and yet Masson had major technical problems. So just as this entire Orioles season has become a major technical problem, they in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 31-37 37. The Mariners in this regular season now are in American League West best 36 and 32. 2 home runs helped to do in the O's. Their starting pitcher was Trevor Rogers. He in his last outing broke a streak of 7 consecutive bad outings. He in this game on Tuesday evening allowed 3 runs in 5 2/3 innings. He gave up 6 hits, which were a home run and 5 singles. He had 3 strikeouts versus 1 walk. He threw a lot of strikes, 97 pitches, 71 strikes, just 26 balls. It was one pitch that marred his outing. Rogers in the top of the 4th gave up a 2-out full count 3-run homer by Mitch Garver to left field for a 3-1 Mariners lead, despite having had him down in the count at 1.02. 4 Orioles relievers in this game combined to allow 3 runs, 2 earned in 4 1/3 innings. Andrew Kittredge allowed 1 run in 1 inning. He in the top of the 7th allowed a run on 3 consecutive 2-out singles. Keegan Aiken tossed 1 1/3 scoreless, hitless, and walkless innings, so the only blemish was a fielding error that he committed. Tyler Wells tossed a scoreless top of the 9th, but Rico Garcia allowed 2 runs, 1 earned in 1 inning. He in the top of the 10th gave up a leadoff opposite field 2-run homer by Randy Arozarena to right field for a 6-4 Mariners lead. So the home runs by Mitch Garver and Randy Arozarena doomed the O's. So Rico Garcia, who had been so good, now has allowed 3 runs, 2 earned in 1 2/3 innings over his last 2 outings. The Orioles offense in this 6-5 10-inning loss to the Mariners at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Tuesday evening. 5 runs, 8 hits, which were a home run, 2 doubles, and 5 singles, 3 walks, but just 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position, and that clearly loomed large. The home run came from Kobe Mayo. He is the Orioles starting third baseman and number 6 batter, went 1 for 5 with a solo homer. Mayo in the Orioles 2-run 9th had a 1-out full count solo homer to left field to cut the Orioles deficit to 4-3. The homer came off Mariners reliever and former Washington Nationals reliever Jose A. Ferrer, who allowed 2 runs in 1 inning and blowing the save chance. Ferrer is a lefty. Mayo continues to dominate lefties. He, for this regular season, now has an OPS of 1,109 versus lefties as compared to an OPS of just 455 versus righties. It's too bad that the majority of pitching is right-handed pitching. Otherwise, this guy would be an MVP candidate. Game 3 for the O's against the Mariners at Oriole Park at Camden Yards, Wednesday evening at 6:35. The O's have listed Brandon Young as their probable starting pitcher for the game. And that'll do it for you and me for now, but there's more to come. Thursday's show, episode 1345, will provide you with more on the Washington Commanders. Also on Thursday's show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats are at the San Francisco Giants Wednesday afternoon at 3:45 for Game 3 of a 3-game series. The O's are home to the Seattle Mariners Wednesday evening at 6:35 for Game 3 of a 4-game series. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.
And another thing, you want to know why they really mad, though? They mad because they stupid. They dumb.